Hello, it's Zach, and I want to show some of the things I've been working on with Looper since the last version I released a few months ago. Um, Thanks to Chris Storm, he's requested quite a few features, and I've tried to implement most of them. Here are some of the ones I've worked on. Let me find a file here. Okay, not that one. Squirrel one. Okay, first off, I have changed these buttons up here to allow holding in the button to change the in and the out trim. So if you hold the left mouse button down when you click this, it trims it back progressively as if you were holding the button down for both plus minus and both on the inside and on the outside. So if you want to do it on this side, you can do that too. Certain files, depending on what format it is, are a little more choppy when you do this. Like, let me load another one here. Something like this one, which is a DV file. It's more responsive when you do it because it doesn't have to find a keyframe. But it's the same difference. You hold it down, it changes the in or the out point. Back or forward. Similar to just holding down the buttons. Excuse me. Similar to just holding down the buttons on the keyboard. It does the same thing either way. Okay, the next thing I've been doing, or been working on, is this search function. That way, if you want to find a specific set of clips in the long list of the looper file, depending on how long it is, you can just search for it. So type in like famous, and it shows just that one event. Then you can double click it to open it up as a loop. Hit the clear button to go back to the main list, or you can search for several things, like Fennec comes up with that, or let's see what else. Matt probably would come up with a few. Yeah. So it shows only the things matching the word you ask for. That way you can have many different things with different names, different titles, and then you can search for it by, like, you know, it was suggested to use like a genre tag like comedy or something. So you type comedy in, there's nothing here, but if anything was listed as comedy, it would show up here. Like anything that's slowed down, you can type it like that, and it'll show the ones that are slowed down or sped up or whatever. So yeah, you can search for whatever you want here, and that's another thing. A third thing is, I made this also due to a suggestion, window docking, where the player and Media Player Classic dock to each other. So if you move one, it moves the other. It also, either when you click on the buttons, it sends it to one side of the screen. You dock it left, it sends everything to the upper left. Put it right, it sends everything to the upper right, and then either click the word dock or click the button again to turn docking off. So now docking is off. Now it's to the left. You can play it, move the windows, either of them moves the other one, move it to the right, and go move it with it. Load the squirrel file again. So it keeps the dock setting the same way. Even when you open a new file, when you make it smaller, it moves it again. Just do that to make the size of it smaller. Okay, turn docking off here. Another big thing I've done is I changed the options menu up. Remember, the options used to be up here. The options is now in the lower left, and it has all these extra options. Also, most of these were due to suggestions. Now, instead of saving everything as default at once, you can save certain things as default, and there are extra options that I'll get into in a minute that you can change. Let me just restart the program in a default state and load that file again. So one of the more fundamental things for defaults is these two are settable per session, which means like every single instance of it has its own separate settings, like 200 and 100. You would never use these probably, but okay, like save that. It tells you change the preview and the slip time, and now for this session, it's 200 and 100 for these two. So if you quit out and you come back in, it jumps back to default, these two. But if you want to save that, click these, save preview time as default and save slip time as default. And now it'll change it, but it'll also save those as the default settings. So when you quit out and come back in, they're back to what you've set it as. If you want to restore them, just unclick them and hit save again. So now we're back to 025 and 005, which is the default settings. You can save the current position of this window, the loop mode button setting, which was this here. It either saves as loop or off, because you can't really save it as playlist mode if you have nothing loaded. There's also a third or a fourth option I have up here, which I'll show in a minute. Always on top button setting and the docking setting. So let's just say, for example, I move it here, want loop off, don't want it on top, and I want it docked to the left. Move it over here. I can change and turn all of these on, or one at a time, like if I just want one of them saved. Now the next time I come into it, it will move everything over where it is. The loop button is off, docking is set to the left, and it's not topmost. If I want all those settings the same, but I want Looper to start in loop mode by default, turn that off. And now as you see, everything's set right, but loop mode is on. And if you want everything turned off, just uncheck everything. Uncheck, uncheck, uncheck. Save. Yes. Now when you come back in, everything will be back to default. Another way of setting that up that I wrote in here, if you want a specific set of defaults to be normal, like let's just say, 25 seconds, and you want all these settings. See, it's just here. You want this to be like the normal way that it starts up. So you want this to be 200, 100, and you want all these as default. Okay? So now when you open it, it will open that way. Everything's over here. The loop button is off. Docking is set that way. Everything. But if you want just one time to use it in the default settings without changing those settings, just one session where you want everything default, if you hold Shift down when you start the program, it didn't work. Oh, there it is. Why did it take so long? For some reason it took a while. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, it opens as default with all the default settings. See, everything's still on here, but for this session, this is default, this is default. These are just on because that's normal, And now it just acts like a normal session. None of the other settings are correct. Or not correct. None of the other settings are carried over. But if you quit out and come back in, it goes back to the way it was set up. So turning all these back to default, I'll go to the extra options. Let's see. This one I have, this is another one that I made. It was suggested similar to when you quit Looper. When you have something playing, it asks you if you want to quit or not. I made an extra version that has, if you're playing something and you close Media Player Classic, it will say, Media Player Classic is closed. Do you want to reopen it? And if you do, if you say yes, it reopens it and plays the file you were playing before, or the loop you were playing before, whatever. And if you say no, it quits out of it, like as if, like it was doing before, like it did before that I added that. So when you have no, it just acts like normal, like it has in the past. Say no, it just closes. But if you turn that off, the disable reopen confirmation, it acts like it used to, where if you close Media Player Classic, it just closes. So I usually have that turned on just because I'm used to that way. If you want it to ask, turn that off. If you do not want it to ask, turn that on. Some of the other settings I have added are auto-load the last open Looper file on Looper launch. This, if you're playing a Looper file and you quit out of the program, it will automatically reopen that file and play the loop you were playing. So, let me jump back to something else. Go to a gull one. So that's a gull on my feeder. Let's say I want this one. When I quit, it will quit like normal, but it will save that looper file and that event in memory. So when I open it back up again, it will open that looper file and play that event. So you come back in, it automatically loads that file and plays that event. So that's what that setting does. And if you have nothing loaded and you quit out, it just acts like normal. See, it opens just like a normal default blank playlist. But sometimes that can screw you up a little bit, like if you open a file from the Explorer. Let me show what I'm talking about here. So like this is playing, and I want to open one of the squirrel ones. Let's see. Squirrel. See, it opened the gull one again because the gull one is set to open. This is something I have to work with for the next, the next version. But that's the way it handles it now. If you double open it, it will open the file. So let me quit out. So that's just one thing I have to work on. It's not a big thing. It's just one of those like little tiny annoyance things that I have to work with. But that's one thing. Turn this setting off because I'm used to it that way. And now when you open it, it just opens like a normal window with nothing playing. Allow multiple instances. This is a huge change that I've made in this version. And what this does, if you have Media Player Classic set to let you use multiple players, like this one here, open a new player, you can have multiple copies of Looper running at the same time, along with multiple copies of MPC-HC. So let me dock this one to the left to make another instance, dock this one to the right, make a third one, put it at the bottom here, dock this one to the right too, but put it down here. And now I can open 3 separate loops. Make this window a little smaller. Move it over here. I can open multiple loops and multiple players, and they're all separate from each other. Make the squirrel one here. It's way huge. So I have a gull one running, a squirrel one running. And I can open like the... Let me get another squirrel one here. They're huge on the screen. I'm not used to working on a smaller screen like this. So yeah, okay, so there's 3 separate loops running and 3 separate loopers. Each one of them is separate from each other. As you can see, the time is different on this one, is different from this one, is different from this one. And the way the hotkeys work now is if you have the main playlist active, or if you have the window it's playing active, hotkeys are enabled for that session. So like, if I click on this window or this window, these two, hotkeys are on, but they're off for this one and for this one. If you click on this one or this one, for those two, hotkeys are on for this session, but neither of these two. And similar for this. If you click on it here, they're on for this, but not for these two. So if I go I/O, yeah, there we go, I/O, it'll only do it for the squirrel. If I do it for here, see hotkeys are on here. Let me clear this here. Now I can do it for the gull. Same with this. Jump, jump. Quicker on the squirrel there. So 3 separate loops running 3 separate things. They can be in different modes. Let me put this one in playlist mode. This one's still in normal mode. And the third thing another thing that I made is randomize. Someone else suggested that I do shuffle mode, where it plays things randomly in the rundown. If you right and left click, let me make this window smaller because it keeps changing the size. So this one's doing shuffle mode. It will literally play in the order that it randomized. See, it's going to 4 now. After it plays this one, it's going to go 2. And now it's going to 6. See, this one's randomized. So this is in shuffle mode. This one's in playlist mode, and this one's in normal loop mode. So you can have 3 separate sessions all running different loops all at the same time, even in different settings, different modes. This one's dock to the left, dock to the right, dock to the right. And they're all separate from each other. Now if you run, close. If you run the multiple instance thing in Looper, but you don't have it set in MPC-HC, when you try to launch another instance, it will give you an error. Well, let me try this again one more time. Launch one, launch another one. It gives you an error. Because the way it is if you only have it set to open one window and you have multiple loopers trying to control one window, it starts to get, communication gets a little turned off. So to have multiple instances like that, you have to enable it both in Looper, right here, allow multiple instances, and you have to enable it in Media Player Classic as well by turning this Open a New Player option on. Once you do that, then you can have multiple instances of both. And then we're doing that again, 2 different things, playing 2 different modes. This one's now in playlist mode. This one's in regular mode. So yeah, multiple instances, multiple playlists, and multiple versions. Not versions, multiple windows, multiple different players. So let me turn that off for the purpose of the demo. Save, turn it off here too. It also gets kind of weird when you have multiple instances of MPC and you only have a single instance of Looper set up, because then it'll try to, it spawns multiple MPC windows, but the Looper doesn't know which one to control. So, I mean, I could have written it so that when you turn that on, it turns it on in MPC-HC too, but I didn't want to screw with the settings. So right now, if you want single instances, make sure both single instances are set. And if you want multiple, make sure both multiple are set. So right now, that's how that works. Yeah, so we're back to normal again. Load this one. No, the wrong one. This one. Okay, now, next option. Disable auto-playing after exiting Looper dialogues. Now, the reason I have that in, and this is also a suggestion, usually when you go into a dialogue and you exit out of it, it starts playing again. With that off, it will not. It just stops. You know, you're playing, you go to the dialogue, and you get out of it, it just stays the way it was. It just stays paused. It won't automatically start playback again. So, like, you know, you want to make a new event, new... it won't start playback. It'll just lay like that. If you have that turned back on, or back off basically, and you do that, make a new event, you know, squirrel jumping. If I can type jumping, that collects enough. See, now it started playing again. So that's how that works. Basically, if you have this on, any dialogue you get out of it will automatically start playing again. If you have this turned off, it'll just stay paused. Auto-playing first event. Also a suggestion. And the cool thing about this that I think, if you have multiple loopers and you just want one event from one, but you want to save it in another one, you can use this technique. So let's just say I want this one squirrel file, but I want it in another looper. When you turn this option on, you can open a looper file, but it won't stop playing this loop. It won't auto-load the next file's first loop. It'll just load the file into the playlist, but it won't actually load any loops. See, it's still playing the loop from the other file, but it loaded the new list from the other file. So now when you make a new loop, squirrel on mat, it puts it in the new rundown, you know, the one you just opened up. So now you can carry that event over to the new rundown. And go back to it here. So that's how that works. Basically all that does is, if you open a new file, it won't stop playing the loop that you're currently playing. So let me not save this, go back to here. Another big thing I changed, you can sort by clicking on these different columns. You can have it sort by event, in-point, out-point, the file name, or the event number. And what the event number is this is the natural order that they are in the original looper file. When you click on something to sort it, it changes this too, to show that this was the original order and this is the new order. If you want to go back to the original order, just sort it by that. And it sorts it by this order. If you delete something in the middle, like let's say delete this file here. Oh, that's right, okay. Delete this file here. It will reorder everything in front of it back 1 or 2 or 3 or how many you delete. So I deleted number 4, it'll move 5 to 4 and 6 to 5. And that doesn't seem like a big deal here, but when you're in a much longer rundown, like the swiper one, let me load that again. This one's like 15 events. Let me turn this off too. So like, you know, delete 5, it reorders everything down. You organize it and delete 1, it reorders everything down. See, it's 14, 4, 13. It's going to go 13, 3, 12, 10. 13, 3, 12, 10. And if you have it in search mode, it will also do the same thing here. So if you delete 5, it will go 12, 11, 9, 12, 11, 9. And when you go back to normal view, it's back to the normal view. You can reorder it by the current, you know, that's the still original order from the original file, just with the files you've deleted, taken out. So if you want to delete a certain, like if you just want to delete the ones that were slowed down, you could go like this, delete a list, and then go back to the original one and go back to the ones with the slow ones taken out. Another thing you could do, let me do biting. You can save a partial playlist. So this partial playlist, biting swiper. Partial playlist is only the search results that you have now. So when you load the partial playlist, it only shows the 3 events that you saved in the search here. So you can do that too. And one last thing I'll show before stopping, because I'm starting to get tired of talking, is this was a feature before, but I didn't really document it that well. This little button here that I added lets you seek right to the file in the Windows Explorer that you're playing. So you want to find the file, you find it, you click that button, it shows you the path, it highlights the file you're playing, that's the file that the loop is coming from.